Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The whip cracked, the sound sharper than a thunderclap in the confined stone chamber, followed instantly by a silence that was far more terrifying than any scream. Blood splattered across the pristine white marble floor, a violent contrast of crimson against the pale stone, steaming as if it carried the heat of a volcano. I didn't stop to think. I didn't check my pockets for the defensive runes I usually carried, nor did I wait for my personal guard to catch up. I threw open the heavy iron doors of the dungeon, the sheer force of my adrenaline nearly tearing the hinges loose, and stepped into the suffocating aura of dark magic and ozone. My brother, Varian, stood in the center of a glowing containment circle, his chest heaving with the exertion of his cruelty. The obsidian-tipped lash coiled around his hand like a resting viper. And there, chained to the damp wall by shackles of weeping silver, was the most beautiful, terrifying creature I had ever laid eyes on, broken, bleeding, but staring at me with eyes like burning amethysts. "That is enough, Varian," I shouted, my voice trembling not with fear, but with a rage that felt alien in my usually quiet chest. Varian turned slowly, a sneer twisting his handsome, aristocratic features. "Ah, little brother, I was wondering when the smell of sulfur would drag you out of your books. You're interrupting the breaking in." "You aren't breaking him," I said, stepping past the safety line of the warding glyphs. The air grew heavy, pressing against my lungs. "You're butchering him, and I won't allow it. He is a demon, Elian," Varian scoffed, flicking the whip so blood sprayed onto his boots. "An incubus of the royal caste. Do you know how many knights died to drag him out of the void? He is a battery, a weapon, and he will learn to submit." I looked at the demon. He hung from the wall, his arms stretched high above his head. His skin was the color of moonlight, marred by angry red welts. Midnight blue horns curled back from his temples, framing a face that could have launched 1,000 wars. Despite his injuries, his gaze wasn't defeated. It was predatory. He was watching us the way a wolf in a trap watches the hunter, waiting for a single mistake. "He is a sentient being protected under the Treaty of Ash," I lied. There was no such treaty, or at least not one that applied to summon demons, but Varian was a brute, not a scholar. "If you kill a royal caste without a soul-binding contract, the backlash will vaporize this entire estate, including your precious inheritance." Varian paused. The greed for power battled with the fear of losing it. "The backlash, a magical implosion," I said, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper. I walked closer to the demon, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The incubus watched me, his lips pulling back to reveal sharp, glistening fangs. "Unchain him. Transfer custody to me. I have the knowledge to bind him without destroying us all." "You?" Varian laughed, but he lowered the whip. "You can barely cast a candlelight spell, Elian. You're a defect, a scholar with no core." "Exactly," I said, meeting the demon's violet gaze. "I have no core for him to feed on violently. I am of no threat to him, and he is of no use to me as a battery. I will stabilize him. Or would you prefer to explain to Father why the East Wing is a crater?" Varian spat on the ground, the glob of saliva landing inches from the demon's bare foot. "Fine, take the monster. But if he eats your heart out in the night, don't expect me to clean up the mess." He muttered a command word, and the silver shackles clicked open. The demon didn't fall. He slumped with a grace that defied his injuries, catching himself on one knee. He didn't look at Varian. He looked solely at me. It was a look of intense calculation, a dissecting stare that felt as though he was peeling back my skin to see the soul underneath. I offered him my hand. It was pale, shaking, and looked absurdly fragile next to his clawed, muscular frame. "Can you walk?" I asked softly. The incubus stood, towering over me by a head and a half. He smelled of crushed spices, copper, and something electric. He ignored my hand, but leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. "You lie well for a human," he rasped, his voice sounding like velvet dragged over gravel. But lying to a predator is a dangerous game. I'm not playing, I whispered back, terrified but holding my ground. I'm saving you. The Tower of Silence was my sanctuary. Located on the northernmost cliff of the estate, it was where I, Elian the Defect, hid from the sneers of the court and the disappointment of my father. Now, it was a prison for a creature that could likely snap my neck with a thought. I had him sit on the chaise lounge near the balcony. The storm outside lashed against the glass, mirroring the turmoil inside the room. I worked in silence, using warm water and salves infused with healing herbs to clean the wounds on his back. He hissed when the alcohol touched a particularly deep gash, his muscles bunching under my fingers. His skin was incredibly hot to the touch, radiating a feverish heat that seeped into my own cold hands. Why? He asked suddenly. I didn't stop cleaning the wound. Why what? Why intervene? Your brother. He enjoys the pain, feeds his ego. But you. The demon turned his head, his violet eyes narrowing. You smell of fear. You are terrified of me. Yet you touched me. You brought me here. Varian is a monster, I muttered, wringing out a cloth. Just because he summoned you doesn't give him the right to torture you. I am an incubus, he said, a dark amusement coloring his tone. I exist to seduce, to drain, to kill. Torture is usually part of the foreplay in my realm. Well, this is the human realm, I said firmly, finally meeting his gaze. And in this room we don't do that. What is your name? He stared at me for a long moment, the silence stretching until the thunder rattled the windows again. I have many names. The Eater of Dreams. The Night's Caress. Your name, I interrupted. The one your mother gave you. Or whatever demons have. He blinked, genuinely surprised. The malice in his eyes receded, replaced by a flicker of curiosity. Caliph, he said quietly. My name is Caliph. Caliph. I tested the name. Felt heavy on my tongue. Ancient. I'm Elian. I know, Caliph murmured, his gaze dropping to my neck, where my pulse fluttered visibly. The defect. The one with the broken core. I flinched. It was the truth, but hearing it from him stung more than I expected. Yes, I have very little mana. I can't sustain you. If you're planning to drain me to escape, you'll kill me in seconds and likely get nothing but a headache. Caliph chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the chaise. He reached out, his hand wrapping around my wrist. His grip was gentle but inescapable. I don't need mana right now, Elian. I need anchor. Anchor. My summoning was forced. My essence is bleeding out. That is why your brother was whipping me. He was trying to force my core to solidify through pain. It is a crude method. He pulled my hand closer, pressing my palm against the center of his chest. Underneath the hard muscle, I felt it. A erratic, thumping rhythm, like a drum beating out of time. I need a connection, Caliph whispered, his eyes dilating. Not sexual. Not yet. Just presence. Someone to ground me. I don't understand. Stay, he commanded, though it sounded like a plea. Just stay. And so began the strangest weeks of my life. I effectively became the keeper of a royal incubus. I brought him food, rare steaks, red wine, fruits that grew in the magical orchards. But more than food, he consumed my time. He demanded I read to him while he healed. He would sit on the floor, his head resting against my knee while I read treatises on history or geography. It was a slow, agonizing burn. I was acutely aware of him every second. The way his tail would lazily flick and wrap around my ankle when he was content. The way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking, with a hunger that wasn't about food or magic, but something deeper, more possessive. We fell into a routine. I protected him from Varian's inquiries, fabricating reports about subjugation rituals and magical conditioning. In reality, we were just talking, arguing, existing. I learned that Caliph was a general in the Abyssal Legions, that he had been betrayed by a rival house, which allowed Varian summoners to catch him off guard. I learned that he loved the sound of rain but hated the cold. And he learned about me, about my isolation, about the library being my only friend until now. "You are not a defect, Elian," he told me one night, standing on the balcony under the moonlight. The wounds on his back had faded to silvery scars. He looked majestic, a dark god against the pale sky. "Your core is not broken. It is merely dormant, locked." "It's the same thing," I said bitterly, looking out at the dark forest. "I am useless to my family." "Good," Caliph growled, stepping closer. He loomed over me, his heat enveloping me against the chill wind. "If you were useful to them, you would be like them. And if you were like them—" He reached out, a clawed finger tracing the line of my jaw. "I would have killed you the moment you walked into that dungeon." My breath hitched. "And now, he whispered, leaning down until our foreheads touched. "Now, the thought of anyone touching you makes my blood boil." It was a confession, a declaration of ownership. And God help me, I wanted to be owned. But peace, in the house of Varian, was a fleeting illusion. It happened 3 days later. I had gone to the kitchens to fetch wine. When I returned to the tower, the door was blasted off its hinges. Shards of wood and stone littered the spiral staircase. I heard shouting, the clash of steel, and a roar that shook the very foundations of the tower. "Caliph!" I screamed, sprinting up the stairs, ignoring the burning in my lungs. I burst into the room to find chaos. 6 of the estate's elite guards lay broken on the floor. Varian stood near the fireplace, holding a jagged crystal artifact, a soul siphon. It was glowing with a sickly green light. Caliph was on his knees. The siphon was draining him, pulling ribbons of violet light from his chest. He roared in agony, swiping at the guards, but his movements were sluggish. He was being weakened, drained dry remotely. "I knew it," Varian yelled, seeing me. "You didn't bind him. You've been petting him like a stray dog. He's at full power, and you've done nothing. Stop it," I yelled, rushing forward. "You'll kill him. That's the point, you idiot." Varian aimed the crystal at Caliph. "If he won't submit, I'll drain him until he's a husk and sell the carcass for parts." I didn't think. I couldn't fight Varian with magic. I couldn't fight the guards with a sword. But I understood the mechanics of the siphon. It required a direct line of sight to the victim's core. I threw myself in front of Caliph. The beam of green light meant for the demon hit me square in the chest. Felt like being punched by a glacier. The cold was instant and absolute. It didn't drain mana because I had none. Instead, it tore at my life force. My vision went white, then black, then red. I heard a scream, not mine, and then I was falling. I hit the floor hard. The cold was spreading, freezing my blood. "Elian!" The roar was deafening. The pressure in the room skyrocketed. I blinked, my vision swimming. The siphon's beam had broken when I fell. Caliph was free. He didn't attack Varian. He didn't flee. He scrambled across the floor, his claws scraping deep gouges into the stone, until he was hovering over me. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. "No, no, no," he chanted, his hands hovering over my chest where the siphon had hit. "You stupid, fragile little thing. Why did you do that?" "He was hurting you," I wheezed. Blood bubbled up my throat, choking me. I could feel the cold seizing my heart. I couldn't let him. "Silence," Caliph snarled. Tears. Actual tears, burning like molten gold, spilling from his eyes. "You are dying. Your heart is stopping." "It's okay," I whispered. My extremities were numb. The darkness was closing in, soft and welcoming. "You're free, Caliph. Go. Free." He laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. "You think I want to be free in a world where you don't exist? You think I will let you leave me? Caliph, I told you," he hissed, his eyes glowing so bright they were blinding. "You are my anchor. If the anchor breaks, the ship is lost." Varian was shouting something in the background, rallying the remaining guards. Kill them both. The defect ruined it. Caliph ignored them. He ignored the swords, the magic, the threat of death. His entire universe had narrowed down to my fading heartbeat. I can't heal this with a spell, Caliph said, his voice trembling. You don't have the core to accept the magic. There is only one way. What? A pact, he said. The old way. A soul for a soul. Breath for breath. He didn't wait for my permission. He didn't ask. He grabbed my face with both hands, his claws retracting but his grip desperate, bruising. Don't you dare die, he commanded. Elian, look at me. Don't you dare leave me. He lowered his head and kissed me. It wasn't a soft kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was a collision. The moment his lips touched mine, the world exploded. It wasn't just physical. It was metaphysical. I felt a rush of power so immense, so ancient, that my back arched off the floor. It was like swallowing a star. Fire poured down my throat, burning away the siphon's cold. It rushed through my veins, incinerating the numbness, jump-starting my heart with the force of a lightning strike. I gasped into his mouth, my eyes snapping open. Caliph wasn't taking from me. He was giving. He was pouring his own essence, his royal demonic vitality, into my empty, broken vessel. He was filling the void where my magic should have been with himself. My mind flooded with images, his memories. Obsidian sky, 2 moons, the loneliness of a throne, the scent of rain, and then, me. His memory of me reading by the fire. His memory of my hand on his chest. Mine, his voice echoed in my head, not spoken, but thought. Mine, mine, mine. He pulled back, gasping, his chest heaving. A tether of violet light connected our lips for a split second before snapping and absorbing into my skin. I lay there, stunned. My body was buzzing. The pain was gone. In its place was a thrumming power that made the air around me crackle. I sat up. The movement was fluid, effortless. I looked at my hands. Tiny arcs of violet lightning danced between my fingers. What? I whispered. I shared my core, Caliph panted, slumping back, looking exhausted but triumphant. A feral grin spread across his face. You aren't a defect anymore, Elian. You're a vessel of a royal incubus. Varian stepped forward, his face pale. What did you do? That's forbidden magic. I stood up. I didn't just stand. I unfolded. I felt taller, stronger. I looked at my brother, and for the first time in my life I didn't feel fear. I felt pity. Leave, I said. My voice wasn't my own. It was layered. My human tenor backed by Caliph's demonic resonance. Kill him, Varian shrieked at the last standing guard. The guard charged. I didn't even raise my hand. I just willed him to stop. Shadows erupted from the floor, wrapping around the guard's legs and slamming him into the wall. Varian dropped the siphon. He backed away, stumbling over the debris. You're a monster. I am what you made me, I said, stepping over the unconscious bodies to stand beside Caliph. I reached down and pulled the demon to his feet. He leaned against me, heavy and warm, his arm draping possessively over my shoulder. We are leaving, I told Varian. If you follow us, if you send anyone after us, I will let him off the leash. Do you understand? Varian nodded, terrified, mute. Caliph laughed, the sound weak but filled with dark delight. Well done, my lord. I helped him toward the door. My heart was racing, but not from exertion. It was the kiss. The memory of it seared my lips. The connection between us was a physical weight now, a golden thread tying my soul to his. We walked out of the tower into the rain. The storm felt good against my skin. You gave me half your life, I murmured as we reached the stables. You weakened yourself permanently to save me. Caliph pinned me against the stable wall, his eyes searching mine. The rain plastered his hair to his forehead, making him look wilder, more ethereal. I told you, he whispered, his thumb tracing my lower lip. I was terrified you would leave. I have spent centuries surrounded by those who wanted to take from me. You were the first who wanted to give. I'm not going anywhere, I promised, gripping the lapels of his torn shirt. Good, Caliph said, leaning in again, his lips brushing mine, sending fresh sparks through my nerves. Because now that you have my power running through your veins, you have no idea the things I am going to teach you. I shivered, but I didn't pull away. I leaned into him, into the danger, into the heat. And that is how the scholar tamed the demon, not with chains, but by being the one thing the monster couldn't bear to lose. If you enjoyed seeing Elian rise from a defect to a powerhouse, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments. Would you share your soul to save a monster, knowing you could never go back to being human? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,